The first few sessions of a new campaign can be an odd yet marvelous experience. There's a lot of mystery and excitement that arise from being unfamiliar with the characters and the setting. Most of it is good, but sometimes it can lead to unwanted results. I've had a few campaigns that started off on the wrong foot because the characters didn't know what to do or did not fit well together. We all know the story of the paladin and the rogue that keep getting in each other's way. It appears they wouldn't even travel together, let alone be friends. Some of these issues can be addressed by the GM, and I want to show you how to approach the first few sessions and how to avoid some common pitfalls. A campaign has all the reasons in the world to start slowly. More often than not, the characters are not familiar with each other and the player is unfamiliar with their characters. Even if we do know the players and their characters, we don't know how they're going to play out or how they're going to interact with each other. This leads us, naturally, to take small baby steps in the beginning of a campaign, which I think is a common pitfall. Now, I've heard some people say that a campaign should start with combat, and I tend to agree that combat is a good way to start a campaign, but what's more important is to start it with interaction. Something needs to happen, and it needs to influence the characters directly. It could be combat, as it creates a tense atmosphere that keeps everyone on their toes, but it doesn't have to be. Anything that would drive the characters into action will do. When the first whiffs of smoke reach the party, they realize too late that the building is on fire. It's spreading fast, unnaturally fast, and by the time they come to their senses, the first floor is already completely engulfed in flames. This is a situation that calls for initiative, just like combat. In this scenario, we give them an opportunity to display a bit of their character. Will they help others on their way out, even if it risks their own safety? What resources or powers will they reveal in order to escape this sudden inferno? This is a 2-for-1 action plus plot hook bundle. Make sure to throw in some evidence that leads to the culprit so the characters could follow up on the hook should they wish to. After the first few scenes, the players will feel more comfortable. Their characters will start talking about the events that transpired and consider their next step. This is exactly why you want them, tackling the problems you've put in front of them. Intra-party conflict is a tough subject. It took me a while to realize how to tackle it effectively. Here are a few things I've learned. More often than not, it's not your fault, so you shouldn't feel bad when it happens at your table. And besides, it's not always bad. If the character is getting an argument that doesn't drag on for too long or turns into a shouting contest, it can benefit the game. Conflict is an opportunity to display other aspects of our characters. Not everyone gets along right away, and sometimes the best friendships are forged in blood, sweat, and tears. Remember Ron and Hermione? Saying they didn't get along at the beginning would be an understatement. However, conflict can be bad. If the conflict in question hurts anyone out of game or makes them uncomfortable, it's bad. It's as simple as that. PvP is something that I do not enjoy in my own games. A game that contains PvP should stay so in Session 0. When a player character backstabs, betrays, or steals from another player character, it has a direct effect on the other player. And I'll dare say they didn't want to experience that. Remember when we talked about building a team player? Team players don't do that. As a GM, there's not a lot you can do to prevent the conflict once it's started. Even if you interrupt the scene with a very random encounter, you only postpone the inevitable. What you can do is help them stay together despite their differences. You can do it by giving them a common enemy, a common goal, or by putting them in circumstances which require them to work together. Let's say your party has been thrown to jail, framed for a murder they did not commit. They've been told that the punishment that awaits them is execution. Now, even if our justice-seeking paladin disagrees with the ways of our morally ambiguous rogue, is probably the best chance they've got to escape. If the paladin stays in prison, he will be executed for a crime he did not commit. He will never bring justice to the person that framed them or the victim of the murder. In LARPing, there's a term called bleed. Bleed happens when the border between the player and the character becomes unclear. It causes the player to confuse the thoughts and emotions of their character with their own. When playing an immersive game, bleed is a rather common experience. Simply being aware that it exists helps a lot when trying to overcome it. The best cures I know for bleed are honesty and time. To sum it up, my tip is the following. Don't shut the conflict down if the players are having fun with it. If it stops being the case and the scene drags on, try to interrupt it with a carefully placed plot hammer. If you can't find one, suggest taking a 10-minute break during which you can try to figure out how to move the session along from here. Remember, nothing that happens in game is worth hurting your friends, so when characters get in odds with each other, the players should discuss it after the session, and make sure no hard feelings bleed out of the game. It takes a while before a bunch of adventurers become an actual party. Most people won't trust strangers right away, but at some point you will probably want the party members to consider the rest of the party as more than just people I kill monsters with. You want them to feel a part of something bigger. Now, this is a process that naturally takes time. That being said, there are ways to promote that feeling and help the formation of the party. Emphasize their strengths and weaknesses. Most tabletop RPGs are built on teamwork, and single character can't do everything, so it's important to have others support it and fill the gaps. When people realize they can rely on their allies to help them when the hour calls for their skills, they learn to trust one another, and trust builds friendship. With that in mind, we need to make sure that each of the characters has their own niche, something they can do better than anyone else in the party. The D&D class system makes it easy for us. Rogues are good at picking locks, wizards have a deep understanding of the arcane, and so on. When you plan the first few sessions, try to think of obstacles that highlight specific skill sets. A locked door followed by a trapped corridor is a perfect opportunity for a rogue to present her skills. When she walks into the next room, she spots a series of arcane glyphs on the walls. Not being proficient in Arcana, the glyphs mean nothing to her. As GM, I will make sure to tell her that in-game. When the wizard steps in, he will have his opportunity to shine. Give them an outside perspective. The player characters change the world around them, and with this change, many others are affected. Let the party feel that, show them how they are perceived by the environment by having NPCs talk about it. Did they do something heroic? Describe a smiling elderly woman that slowly walks towards them. She thanks them for their heroism and asks to know what they're called. Even if they wouldn't come up with a name right away, the idea of having a name is out there. And having a name is a really big step towards becoming a group. When the outside world constantly addresses them as a group, they will quickly become one. I've mentioned the power of backstories in a previous video. Bring a story from the past into the spotlight and the character it belongs to will become more invested. Turn the plot hook into a quest line that the character can't accomplish alone, and they will call on their friends for aid. Now this method is a bit tricky because the character related to the story will be more invested than the rest. Early on, if the personal interest of a character is the only motive to do something, chances are the party wouldn't want to do it. Instead, try to weave elements of the character's backstory to something the party is already doing. This can be another clue to solve a mystery, an ally from the past that can help in a pinch, or maybe the villain they were chasing turns out to be no other than Dorivicus the Undying, the paladin's sworn enemy. Now it's personal. Different people look for different things in role-playing games, and for some people those things can vary even between games. So you can't assume you know what the players want just because you played together in a previous campaign. To handle that, we should actively listen to them during the game session and take notes. Who didn't participate? By asking this question, we can figure out if we need to engage certain players in a different way, perhaps more directly. Maybe we didn't plan something that fits their character or playstyle. Who participated and when? What was it they liked? Combat, riddles, social encounters, a specific NPC? Can you bring more of that in future sessions? A side note for those questions, some people are more talkative by nature, while others enjoy to listen more. If you can't reach them in game after a few sessions, try talking with them out of game and hear them out. Some of my best players enjoy the game without talking very frequently. That's it for this video, folks. If you found anything in here useful, please like and subscribe for more videos like this one in the future. As always, I'm happy to hear from you guys in the comments. Tell me about the beginning of your campaign or a campaign you played in. Until next time, see you beyond the screen.